The rain came down in sheets that afternoon, drumming against the windows of Pete's corner store where Andre Taylor stood behind the counter. At 17, Andre was already shouldering responsibilities that would weigh down most adults. Between attending high school in the mornings and working evenings at the store, he somehow managed to help his grandmother raise his two younger siblings in their small apartment on the south side of town. "You heading out soon, Andre?" Mr. Pete called from the back room where he was unpacking inventory. "It's almost 7. "Yes, sir, just waiting for Darnell to come in for the night shift," Andre replied, wiping down the counter one more time. His grandmother had taught him to always leave things better than he found them. The bell above the door jingled, but instead of Darnell, a young woman hurried in, her light jacket soaked through. She wasn't from the neighborhood. That much was clear from her careful way of moving, eyes taking in everything. But there was something unpretentious about her, too, the way she pushed her wet hair from her face and offered a small smile to Andre. "Terrible weather out there," she said, her voice soft but clear. "My car just died across the street and my phone's dead, too. Could I use your phone to call for help?" Andre glanced at the clock. Darnell was running late as usual. "Sure thing. You can use the store phone." He pushed it across the counter toward her. "Thank you so much," she said, relief washing over her face. She dialed a number, waited, then frowned. No answer at the garage. Andre looked out the window at the small blue car sitting awkwardly half on the curb. The rain was getting worse and darkness was falling. His grandmother would be expecting him home to help with dinner, but he couldn't just leave this person stranded. "I know a bit about cars," he offered. "Maybe I could take a look. No promises, but sometimes it's just something simple." The young woman looked surprised. "Really, you wouldn't mind?" Mr. Pete emerged from the back, sizing up the situation. "Go ahead, Andre. Darnell just texted. He'll be here in 10 minutes. I can cover till then." Andre grabbed his worn jacket from beneath the counter and the large umbrella Mr. Pete kept for deliveries. "I'm Andre, by the way," he said as they walked toward the door. "I'm Zoe," she replied with a grateful smile. Outside, Andre held the umbrella over both of them as they dashed across the street to her car. The rain pounded against the fabric above their heads and puddles splashed around their feet. "It just suddenly sputtered and died," Zoe explained, standing close to him under the umbrella's protection. "I managed to steer it over here." Andre handed her the umbrella. "Hold this for a minute." He popped the hood and peered inside, raindrops immediately soaking into his jacket. With careful fingers, he checked a few connections, then asked her to try starting it. The engine made a clicking sound but wouldn't turn over. "Could be the battery or the starter," he said, wiping rain from his face. "Let me try one more thing." He reached in and wiggled some connections, checking for corrosion on the battery terminals. After a few minutes of methodical inspection, he looked up at Zoe, who watched him with curious eyes. "I think it's your battery. The terminals are pretty corroded and it looks old. Probably been on its last legs for a while and the rain didn't help." Zoe sighed. "So I need a tow truck anyway?" "Afraid so. But I know someone who won't overcharge you." Andre pulled out his phone and dialed. "Hey, Mr. Washington? It's Andre Taylor. I've got someone here with a dead battery." "Yeah, at Pete's corner store." "Great, thanks." He turned back to Zoe. "He'll be here in about 20 minutes. He's good people, won't try to sell you stuff you don't need." Zoe looked genuinely touched. "Thank you. Most people wouldn't stop to help a stranger like this." Andre shrugged. "My grandma always says we're all just one bad day away from needing help ourselves." He nodded toward the store. "Let's wait inside where it's dry." Back in the warm store, Darnell had arrived and was tying on his apron. Andre introduced Zoe and explained the situation. "You want some coffee while you wait?" Andre offered. "On the house." "That would be wonderful," Zoe said, rubbing her arms for warmth. As Andre prepared the coffee, he noticed Zoe looking around the small store with interest rather than judgment. Most outsiders who wandered into this neighborhood either showed fear or condescension, but she seemed genuinely curious. "So you know a lot about cars?" she asked, accepting the steaming cup. "Some. My uncle was a mechanic before he moved down south. He taught me the basics when I was younger." Andre leaned against the counter. "Comes in handy sometimes." "I should probably learn," Zoe admitted. "I'm embarrassingly helpless when it comes to anything mechanical." "It's never too late to learn," Andre said. "Most people just never get around to it." They fell into easy conversation while waiting for the tow truck. Andre learned that Zoe was 21 and had been visiting a community center a few blocks away. She didn't volunteer much more information, and Andre didn't pry. In this neighborhood, people respected each other's privacy. When Mr. Washington arrived, Andre went outside with Zoe to explain the situation. The older man confirmed Andre's diagnosis after a quick check. "Battery's done for, miss. I can tow you to my shop, but we're closed now. I can fix it first thing tomorrow morning." Zoe bit her lip, looking uncertain. "Is there anywhere I could get a rideshare around here?" Mr. Washington and Andre exchanged glances. "Reception's spotty for those apps in this area," Andre explained. "And with this weather, it might be a long wait." "I can give you a ride," Mr. Washington offered. "Where are you headed?" "Westbrook," Zoe said, naming an area across town. Andre noticed the slight raise of Mr. Washington's eyebrows. Westbrook was one of the wealthier districts. "That's a bit out of my way tonight," Mr. Washington said apologetically. "Got to pick up my wife from her sister's in the opposite direction." "I understand," Zoe said quickly, though concern flashed across her face. Andre checked the time. His grandmother would worry, but he couldn't leave Zoe stranded. "I can take you," he said. "The 42 bus goes pretty close to Westbrook. We'd have to walk a few blocks to the stop, though." Relief washed over Zoe's face. "Are you sure?" "I don't want to impose, and it's no problem. Just let me text my grandma." Andre sent a quick message explaining he'd be late. Almost immediately, his phone buzzed with her reply, "Be safe. Dinner in the microwave when you get home." After arranging details with Mr. Washington for the car repair, they set off toward the bus stop. The rain had lightened to a drizzle, but Andre still held the umbrella over them both. "Your grandmother won't mind you getting home late?" Zoe asked as they walked. Andre smiled. "She raised me to help people when they need it. She'll understand." At the bus stop, they waited alongside a few other rain-soaked passengers. When the bus arrived, Andre paid for both their fares despite Zoe's protests. "You can pay me back by learning how to check your battery connections," he said with a grin. The bus was nearly empty. As they settled into seats near the back, Zoe turned to Andre with curiosity in her eyes. "So what do you want to do? After high school, I mean." Andre rarely discussed his dreams with strangers, but something about Zoe's genuine interest made him open up. "I want to study engineering. I've always been good with figuring out how things work, fixing stuff." He looked out at the rain-streaked window. "My school has this partnership with the community college. I'm taking some advanced math classes there already." "That's impressive," Zoe said, and unlike when most people said it, she didn't sound surprised, as if it was unexpected from someone like him. "What about you?" Andre asked. "What do you do?" A brief hesitation crossed Zoe's face. "I'm still figuring things out. Taking some classes, working with community programs." The bus lurched to a stop, and an elderly woman struggled to board with several bags. Without hesitation, Andre stood up to help her, carrying her groceries to a seat near the front before returning to Zoe. "That was kind of you," Zoe observed softly. Andre shrugged. "Just the right thing to do." As they approached Westbrook, the streets became wider, the buildings newer. When they got off the bus, Andre walked Zoe to the corner where she said she could easily get home. "Thank you for everything," Zoe said, suddenly looking a bit awkward. She reached into her pocket. "Please let me give you something for your help in the bus fare." Andre shook his head. "No need. Helping someone doesn't cost anything." Zoe looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read, surprise mixed with something deeper, like she was seeing something unexpected. "Well, at least let me properly thank you," she said. "I'll come by the store sometime." "When do you usually work?" "Weekdays after 4, usually," Andre replied, surprised by her interest in returning. "I'll stop by," she promised. "Maybe bring you some coffee for a change." As Andre watched her walk away, turning once to wave, he never could have guessed that this simple act of kindness on a rainy day would change both their lives forever. He just knew his grandmother would be proud when he told her about his day. And really, that was enough. He turned and headed back to the bus stop, thinking about the engineering problem set waiting for him at home and the leftover dinner his grandmother had saved. Tomorrow would be another long day, but somehow, helping Zoe had made this one a little brighter. 3 days after the rainy evening when Andre had helped Zoe with her car troubles, he was restocking the snack aisle at Pete's corner store when the bell above the door jingled. He glanced up, then did a double take when he saw Zoe walking in, carrying 2 coffee cups and wearing a simple jean jacket over a plain white t-shirt. "You actually came back," Andre said, unable to hide his surprise. Most people from the nicer parts of town treated this neighborhood like a place to pass through, not return to. Zoe smiled, holding out one of the cups. "I promised coffee, didn't I? I always keep my promises." The rich aroma of fresh coffee, not the weak brew from the store's ancient machine, filled Andre's nostrils as he accepted the cup. "Thanks, that's really thoughtful." "It's the least I could do after all your help," she said, leaning against the counter. "By the way, your mechanic friend was great. Fixed my car, explained what was wrong, and didn't try to confuse me with technical jargon." Andre nodded. "Mr. Washington's good people. Been fixing cars in this neighborhood for 30 years. There was a comfortable pause as they both sipped their coffee. Andre noticed Zoe seemed more relaxed today, less out of place despite her obvious differences from most of the store's regular customers. "So, how's your grandmother?" Zoe asked. "You mentioned you were helping her with your siblings." Andre was touched she'd remembered that detail. "She's doing okay. Works hard cleaning offices downtown, but her arthritis gives her trouble sometimes." "And your siblings?" "Keisha's 14, smart as a whip but with an attitude to match," Andre said with a fond smile. "Daryl's 10, loves basketball and comic books." He paused, surprised at himself for sharing so much with someone he barely knew. Mr. Pete emerged from the back room, eyebrows rising slightly at the sight of Zoe. "Well, hello there. Friend of Andre's?" "This is Zoe," Andre explained. "The one with the car trouble from the other night." Mr. Pete nodded with understanding. "Nice to meet you properly. Andre here's the most reliable young man I know. Been working here since he was 15, never missed a day." Zoe smiled. "I'm not surprised. He went way out of his way to help me. A customer came in looking for cigarettes and Mr. Pete moved to the register, giving Andre a subtle nod that said he could take a break if he wanted. "I get off in an hour," Andre said to Zoe. "But I can take 15 minutes now if you want to talk." They moved to the small table by the window where occasionally customers would sit to eat the pre-packaged sandwiches the store sold. Outside, the street was busy with after-school foot traffic, kids from the neighborhood heading home or to the community center down the block. "So what brought you back to this area?" Andre asked. "Most people from Westbrook don't make special trips here just to deliver coffee." Zoe hesitated, turning her cup in her hands. "I volunteer at the Riverside Community Center, teaching basic computer skills to adults looking for better jobs." Andre's eyebrows rose. "For real?" "That's cool. My grandma took classes there last year, said it helped her fill out online applications." "That's exactly why I do it," Zoe said, her face lighting up with genuine enthusiasm. "So many jobs require computer knowledge now, even entry-level positions." "How'd you get into that?" Andre asked, curious about this girl who seemed so different from yet somehow similar to himself. "I believe education should be accessible to everyone," she said simply, "not just those who can afford fancy courses." They talked for the next 15 minutes, the conversation flowing naturally. Andre learned that Zoe was taking a gap year before deciding on her next steps, though she remained vague about her background. She seemed more interested in hearing about his engineering aspirations. "So what kind of engineering are you interested in?" she asked. "Civil engineering," Andre replied without hesitation. "I want to build things that help communities, bridges, better housing, water systems. Things that last." Zoe nodded, seeming genuinely impressed. "That's really admirable. Do you have schools in mind?" Andre's expression shifted slightly. "State University has a good program. Tuition's still steep, but they have some scholarships I'm applying for." He didn't mention how the odds were stacked against him, how limited the funding was compared to the number of applicants. When Andre's break ended, he expected Zoe to leave, but instead, she browsed the store while he worked, occasionally asking questions about products or the neighborhood. There was nothing condescending about her curiosity. She seemed genuinely interested in understanding this part of town. As Andre's shift neared its end, Zoe approached the counter again. "Do you have plans after work?" "I thought maybe we could grab something to eat." Andre hesitated. He had homework waiting and had promised to help Daryl with his math, but something about Zoe's company felt refreshing. "I need to check in at home first, but yeah, we could do that." They ended up at Lena's Diner, a local spot 3 blocks away known for enormous portions at reasonable prices. As they settled into a worn vinyl booth, Andre noticed Zoe looking around with interest rather than judgment at the diverse crowd of neighborhood regulars. "This place has the best burgers in town," Andre said, scanning the familiar menu despite knowing it by heart. "Been coming here since I was a kid." "Then I'll trust your recommendation," Zoe said with a smile. Over cheeseburgers and fries, their conversation deepened. Andre found himself talking about things he rarely discussed with anyone. His dreams of designing affordable housing that was actually livable, his frustration with the crumbling infrastructure in his neighborhood, the pressure he felt to succeed for his family's sake. "My dad left when I was 8, he admitted, surprising himself with the personal disclosure. "Grandma took us in, but I've been trying to be the man of the house ever since." "That's a lot of responsibility for a kid," Zoe said softly. Andre shrugged. "Lots of people around here have it harder. At least we have each other." "Still," Zoe said, "you shouldn't have to carry everything on your shoulders." There was something in her eyes, not pity, which Andre would have hated, but a genuine understanding that made him feel seen in a way he rarely experienced. Zoe shared stories too, though Andre noticed she often redirected the conversation back to him when details about her own life came up. She talked about her volunteer work, her love of photography, and her complicated relationship with her grandfather, though she never mentioned his name or why things were strained between them. "He has very specific ideas about what my life should look like," she explained. "The volunteering was actually something I started partly to annoy him," Andre laughed. "Rebelling by helping people? That's different." "It turned out to be the best decision I ever made," she said, a warmth in her voice that suggested complete sincerity. After dinner, they walked slowly back toward the bus stop. The evening air was cool but pleasant, the street lamps casting pools of light on the sidewalk. "Thanks for hanging out," Andre said. "It was nice to talk to someone different," Zoe suggested. "I was going to say someone who really listens," Andre corrected with a small smile. Over the next few weeks, Zoe became a regular visitor at Pete's corner store. She'd stop by after her volunteer shifts at the community center, sometimes bringing coffee, other times just coming to talk. Occasionally, they'd grab dinner at Lena's diner or walk around the neighborhood, Zoe asking questions about local history that Andre was surprised to find he knew the answers to. What struck Andre most was how Zoe never seemed to be slumming or treating their friendship as some kind of charitable project. She genuinely seemed to enjoy his company, laughing at his jokes, debating ideas, offering perspectives that made him think. One afternoon, about a month after they'd met, Zoe arrived at the store looking particularly excited. "There's an engineering exhibition at the Science Center this weekend," she said as soon as she spotted Andre. "They're showcasing new, sustainable building technologies. Want to go?" Andre hesitated. The Science Center was downtown, expensive, and not somewhere he typically spent his limited free time and money. Sensing his hesitation, Zoe added, "I have 2 free passes. My grandfather's company is one of the sponsors, so they sent me tickets." Andre raised an eyebrow. "Your grandfather's company sponsors engineering exhibitions?" For a moment, Zoe looked flustered. "He's in construction, sort of." It was one of many moments when Andre sensed there was more to Zoe's background than she revealed. But he never pushed. Everyone had the right to their privacy, and he appreciated that she never pressed him about the details of his family's financial struggles. "Saturday afternoon? I work the morning shift, but I'm free after 2, Andre said. "Perfect," Zoe beamed. "I'll pick you up here. My car's running great now, thanks to you and Mr. Washington." That Saturday turned out to be one of the best days Andre could remember. The exhibition was fascinating. Cutting-edge designs for energy-efficient buildings, innovative water management systems, 3D-printed housing components that could slash construction costs. Andre moved from display to display, absorbing everything, asking questions of the presenters that impressed even the engineers. "You really know your stuff," one presenter commented, after Andre pointed out a potential flaw in a drainage system design. "He's going to be building better systems than these someday," Zoe said with such confidence that Andre almost believed it himself. On the drive home, Andre was quiet, his mind racing with ideas and possibilities. "What are you thinking about?" Zoe asked, glancing away from the road for a second. "Just that," Seeing all that makes me even more sure about what I want to do, Andre said, but also makes it seem further away somehow. Zoe's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. Because of money? Andre nodded. State's engineering program is good, but the really innovative stuff happens at places like Tech Institute or Baldwin University. Those schools cost more than my family makes in a year. There are scholarships, Zoe said. With your grades and talent, I'm applying for everything I can find, Andre cut in. But those big scholarships are like winning the lottery. Thousands of kids competing for a handful of spots. Zoe was quiet for a moment, then said with strange certainty, You'll find a way. Andre, I know you will. As they pulled up near Pete's corner store, Andre turned to her. Thanks for today. It meant a lot. What are friends for? Zoe replied with a smile that warmed something deep in Andre's chest. Neither of them could have known that their friendship was about to be tested in ways they couldn't imagine, or that Zoe's carefully maintained secrets were soon to unravel in the face of a family crisis that would change everything. The mid-October morning started like any other for Andre. He woke before dawn, helped Daryl get ready for school, made breakfast for everyone, and checked that Keisha had finished her homework before heading to his first class at the community college. His grandmother, Rose, had seemed more tired than usual lately, moving slowly and wincing when she thought no one was looking. But when Andre asked if she was okay, she just smiled and said, Just getting old, baby. Nothing to worry about. By the time Andre's afternoon shift at Pete's corner store began, the mild worry from the morning had faded beneath the crush of equations from his advanced math class and thoughts about the upcoming scholarship application deadlines. Zoe had been texting him links to different programs, some he'd never even heard of, and he was grateful for her help, even if some of the prestigious scholarships she suggested seemed like impossible reaches. When his phone rang just after 5, Andre was surprised to see Keisha's name on the screen. His sister rarely called him at work. Hey, what's up? He answered, tucking the phone between his ear and shoulder as he restocked the refrigerated drinks. Andre, you need to come home. Keisha's voice was tight with panic, so unlike her usual confident tone that Andre immediately stopped what he was doing. It's Grandma. She collapsed in the kitchen. The ambulance just took her. The world seemed to tilt sideways. What hospital? Andre asked, already moving toward Mr. Pete to explain the situation. City General. Daryl's crying. I don't know what to do. I'm on my way, Andre said. Call Mrs. Washington next door. She'll stay with you until I get there. Mr. Pete didn't hesitate. Go, son. Family comes first. I'll cover your shift. The bus ride to the hospital was the longest 20 minutes of Andre's life. His mind raced with worst-case scenarios, calculations of how much money they had saved, not nearly enough for a serious medical issue, and what would happen to Keisha and Daryl if something happened to their grandmother. At City General, Andre found his siblings in the crowded waiting room, Daryl's eyes red from crying, Keisha trying to look tough but with fear written across her face. What happened? Andre asked, pulling them both into a hug. She was making dinner, Keisha explained, her voice unsteady. Then she just grabbed her chest and fell. She couldn't breathe right. Before Andre could ask more questions, a tired-looking nurse called out, Family of Rose Taylor. The next hour was a blur of medical terms, forms to sign, and barely concealed concern from the doctors. Heart attack, they said. Significant damage. Need for specialized care, tests, procedures, and everywhere. The unspoken question of payment hanging in the air. We'll need to discuss financial arrangements, a hospital administrator finally said directly, leading Andre to a small office away from his siblings. Your grandmother's insurance coverage is limited. Andre sat stiffly in the hard plastic chair as the administrator outlined costs that made his stomach drop. Even with their insurance, the out-of-pocket expenses for the treatments his grandmother needed would be more than everything the family had saved. There are some assistance programs, the administrator said, sliding a few pamphlets across the desk, but they won't cover everything, and the approval process takes time. In the meantime, my grandmother gets what level of care? Andre asked, his voice tight. The administrator's eyes flicked away briefly. We provide essential treatment to all patients regardless of ability to pay. But some of the specialized procedures and medications recommended for your grandmother's condition. Andre understood what wasn't being said. His grandmother would get the bare minimum without payment up front. He thanked the administrator woodenly and returned to the waiting room, the pamphlets clutched in his hand, feeling like he was drowning. Keisha took one look at his face and sent Daryl to get a soda from the vending machine. "How bad is it?" she asked once their younger brother was out of earshot. "Bad," Andre admitted. "We need to figure something out." That night, after getting his siblings settled at home with assurances that everything would be okay, lies that tasted bitter in his mouth, Andre sat at the kitchen table with their bank statements and bills spread before him. Even if he picked up extra shifts, even if he sold his laptop and the old TV, even if they cut every possible expense, they wouldn't come close to covering the treatments their grandmother needed. Andre barely slept. The next morning, he called the community college to explain his absence, then headed back to the hospital for visiting hours. Rose was awake but weak. Her normally vibrant presence diminished in the hospital bed. "Don't you worry about a thing," she told Andre, patting his hand. "The Lord provides." Andre nodded, not trusting himself to speak. On his way out, a different doctor stopped him, one who had been checking on his grandmother earlier. "Your grandmother's condition is serious but treatable with the right care," the doctor said. "I understand there are financial concerns, but I want to make sure you're aware of all options." The doctor mentioned a clinical trial for a new cardiac rehabilitation program at the university hospital across town. It would cover most of her treatment at no cost, but the selection process is competitive, and there's still the matter of aftercare and medications. It was a ray of hope, but a slim one. Andre thanked the doctor and promised to look into it immediately. That afternoon, Zoe texted asking why he hadn't been at the store. Andre hadn't even thought to tell her what was happening. When he explained the situation, her response was immediate. "Which hospital? I'm coming." An hour later, Zoe arrived at City General with a bag of sandwiches and drinks for Andre and his siblings. Her presence was a comfort Andre hadn't realized he needed. "Have you eaten anything today?" she asked. And when Andre shook his head, she practically forced a sandwich into his hands. "You can't help your grandmother if you collapse too." While Keisha took Daryl to see their grandmother, Zoe sat with Andre in the cafeteria and listened as he explained the financial situation. "There's a clinical trial that might help, but even with that, we're looking at costs we just can't handle," Andre admitted, the words painful to say aloud. Zoe was quiet for a moment, then asked carefully, "Would you be open to some help?" "I know some people," Andre stiffened. "I'm not looking for charity." "Not charity," Zoe said quickly. "There's a foundation I have connections with. They help families facing medical crises, especially when there are children involved." "A foundation?" Andre repeated skeptically. "The Bennett Foundation," Zoe said, then added quickly. "They're legit. They work with several hospitals in the city to cover gaps in care." Andre had never heard of it, but at this point he was willing to explore any option. "How do we apply?" "Let me make some calls," Zoe said. "I just need your grandmother's information and the doctor's assessment." Over the next few days, as Rose remained in the hospital, Zoe became Andre's unexpected rock. She helped with the paperwork for the clinical trial, brought food to the house for Keisha and Daryl, and even drove Andre to and from the hospital when bus schedules didn't align with visiting hours. Then, just as suddenly as the crisis had begun, things started to change. Rose was accepted into the clinical trial. A hospital financial counselor informed Andre that the Bennett Foundation had approved a grant that would cover all remaining expenses, including at-home care and medications for the next year. "This is unusual," the counselor admitted. "The foundation typically has a longer approval process, but they fast-tracked your case." When Andre tried to thank Zoe, she brushed it off. "I just made a phone call. The foundation makes the decisions based on need." But something about her evasiveness made Andre wonder. He'd noticed other small things too. How easily she moved through the hospital, the way some of the administrative staff seemed to recognize her but quickly looked away, how a private room suddenly became available for his grandmother when previously they'd been told none were open. 2 weeks after Rose's heart attack, she was transferred to a rehabilitation center that looked more like a luxury hotel than a medical facility. "I think there's been a mistake," Andre told the intake coordinator. "Our insurance wouldn't cover a place like this." "No mistake," the coordinator assured him. "The Bennett Foundation covers comprehensive care. Your grandmother is exactly where she should be." That evening, Andre searched online for information about the Bennett Foundation. What he found made his blood run cold. The foundation was the charitable arm of Bennett Enterprises, one of the largest development and investment firms in the country. The company was headed by Robert Bennett, a billionaire known for transforming urban areas, sometimes controversially, as their developments often led to gentrification and displacement of longtime residents. And there, in a photo from a charity gala, stood Robert Bennett with his arm around a young woman whose face Andre knew well, Zoe. Except the caption didn't call her Zoe. It called her Zoe Bennett, granddaughter and heir to the Bennett fortune. Andre stared at the photo for a long time, emotions churning in his chest. The friend he'd thought he'd known, the person he'd shared his dreams and struggles with, had been hiding a massive part of her identity all along. And now her family's foundation was paying for his grandmother's care. It wasn't just about the money, though that was shocking enough. It was the deception. All those times Zoe had listened to him talk about his financial worries, his struggles to find scholarship money. Had she been laughing at him inside? Had their friendship been some kind of charitable project for a bored rich girl? The next day, when Zoe texted asking to visit Rose at the rehabilitation center, Andre replied with just 4 words, "I know who you are." Zoe's response to Andre's text was immediate. "We need to talk, please." Andre didn't reply. He put his phone away and focused on his grandmother, who was looking better today, some color returning to her cheeks as she sat up in her bed at the rehabilitation center. "This place is something else," Rose said, looking around the spacious private room with its large windows overlooking a garden. "Never thought I'd stay somewhere so fancy." Andre forced a smile. "Only the best for you, Grandma. That friend of yours, the one who visited yesterday, Zoe? She seems nice." Andre's jaw tightened. "Yeah." Rose gave him a long look. "Something wrong between you two?" "No," Andre lied. "Everything's fine, but nothing was fine." For the next 3 days, Andre ignored Zoe's increasingly urgent texts and calls. He went to school, picked up extra shifts at Pete's corner store, visited his grandmother, and helped his siblings with homework, all while a storm brewed inside him. The 4th day after his discovery, Andre arrived at the rehabilitation center to find Zoe sitting in the waiting area. She stood when she saw him, her face a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Andre, please," she said, taking a step toward him. "Just 5 minutes." Andre looked around at the other visitors, not wanting to make a scene. "Fine. Outside." They walked in silence to a small courtyard where patients sometimes sat during good weather. It was empty now, the November air too chilly for most. "Why are you here?" Andre asked flatly once they were alone. Zoe took a deep breath. "To explain." "To apologize. For what part?" Andre's voice was quiet but intense. "For lying about who you are? For playing at being my friend? Or for turning my family into your charity case?" "I never lied about who I am," Zoe protested. "I just didn't tell you my last name or about my family's money." "That's a pretty big thing to leave out, don't you think?" Andre shot back. "All those times I talked about struggling to afford college, about working extra shifts just to help with bills, you must have been laughing inside." "I never laughed at you," Zoe said, her eyes flashing with hurt. "Not once. I admired you. I still do. Why the act then? Why pretend to be someone else?" Zoe looked down at her hands. "Because people treat me differently when they know I'm a Bennett. They either want something from me or they assume I'm spoiled and shallow. With you?" She looked up, meeting his eyes. "With you, I got to just be Zoe. Not the Bennett heiress, not my grandfather's project, just me." Andre crossed his arms. "So I was what? An experiment in how the other half lives?" "No, you are my friend." "My real friend?" Zoe's voice cracked slightly. "Do you know how rare that is for me? Someone who likes me for myself, who challenges me, who doesn't care about my family connections?" "I didn't know about your family connections," Andre pointed out coldly. "Hard to care about something you're not aware of." A tense silence fell between them. A nurse walked through the courtyard, giving them a curious glance before continuing on her way. "I should have told you," Zoe finally admitted, "but I was afraid of losing what we had. And then when your grandmother got sick, I just wanted to help." "By throwing money at the problem?" Andre's voice was bitter. "By using the resources I had available," Zoe countered. "Would you rather I had let you struggle when I could do something? Would that have made you feel better?" The question hit Andre hard. Would he have preferred his grandmother receive lesser care just to protect his pride? Of course not. But the way it happened behind his back, "You should have been honest with me," he said finally. "Let me make my own choice." "You're right," Zoe acknowledged. "I was wrong to handle it the way I did. But I wasn't wrong to care about you and your family." Andre turned away, looking out at the neatly trimmed bushes of the courtyard. "I don't know what to do with this, Zoe, or whoever you are. I'm still the same person you've known these past weeks." "That wasn't fake," Andre shook his head. "I don't know that. I don't know what parts were real and what parts weren't." Zoe stepped closer. "Ask me anything. I'll tell you the truth, all of it." For a moment, Andre was tempted, but the hurt was still too fresh. "I need time to think." "Okay," Zoe said softly. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. "When you're ready to talk, if you're ready, call me. My real number. My real email." Andre took the card without looking at it, tucking it into his jacket pocket. "I need to get back to my grandmother." "Andre," Zoe called as he turned to leave. "For what it's worth, I never pitied you. Not once. I envied you." Andre paused. "Envied me? That's rich." The words came out harsher than he intended. "You have a real family," Zoe said simply. "People who love you for who you are, not what you represent. You know exactly who you are and what you want. I never had that clarity." Without responding, Andre walked away, her words echoing in his mind. The next week was one of the hardest of Andre's life. His grandmother continued to improve, which was the one bright spot. But he felt weighed down by confusion, hurt, and, though he was reluctant to admit it, a sense of loss. He missed Zoe. Not Zoe Bennett, the heiress, but just Zoe, the person who had become his friend. At school, he found it hard to concentrate. At work, Mr. Pete noticed his distraction. "Woman troubles?" the older man asked after Andre misplaced an entire shipment of energy drinks. "Something like that," Andre muttered. "Must be serious. Never seen you this rattled before." Andre sighed. "Have you ever found out someone wasn't who you thought they were?" Mr. Pete considered this. "Can't say that I have, but I've found out people were more than I thought they were. That happens plenty." The distinction stuck with Andre. Was that what had happened with Zoe? Not that she was different from who he thought, but that there was more to her than he knew. At home, Keisha was less philosophical. "So she's rich, so what?" his sister said when Andre finally explained the situation. "She helped Grandma when we needed it. That counts for something." "It's not that simple," Andre argued. "Seems pretty simple to me," Keisha shot back. "Your pride got hurt because your girlfriend turned out to be loaded." "She's not my girlfriend," Andre protested. Keisha rolled her eyes. "Whatever. All I know is Grandma's getting better because of her, and you're moping around like somebody died." Andre couldn't argue with that logic, as much as he wanted to. 2 weeks after their confrontation in the courtyard, Andre found himself standing outside the Riverside Community Center, where Zoe volunteered. He hadn't planned to come here, had told himself he was just taking a walk to clear his head, but somehow his feet had carried him to this place. Through the window, he could see Zoe sitting next to an older woman, patiently showing her something on a computer. There was nothing condescending in her manner, just the same genuine helpfulness he'd always seen in her. Before he could decide whether to go in, the door opened and a man in a suit stepped out, immediately followed by Zoe, who looked upset. "Grandfather, please," she was saying. "This isn't the time or place." The older man, tall, imposing, with silver hair and an expensive overcoat, looked distinctly out of place in this neighborhood. "I've given you enough time with this project. The board meeting is tomorrow and you will be there." "I've never missed a meeting," Zoe replied, an edge to her voice. "But I won't cut my class short. These people count on me." "These people," her grandfather said, sweeping his hand to indicate the neighborhood, "are exactly the sort who will benefit from our new development, which is what tomorrow's vote is about, in case you've forgotten." Andre froze. "New development? In this neighborhood?" "The development isn't the problem," Zoe said. "The lack of affordable housing for displaced residents is. We've been through this, Zoe. The Bennett Foundation will provide assistance for transitions." "Transitions?" Zoe interrupted. "You mean forcing people out of homes they've lived in for generations? Moving them to areas with fewer services and opportunities?" Her grandfather's face hardened. "This is business, not charity. The neighborhood will improve. And for who?" Zoe challenged. Not for the people who actually live here now. Andre had heard enough. He stepped forward, making his presence known. Excuse me. Both Bennetts turned to look at him, Zoe's eyes widening in surprise. Andre, she said. Is it true? Andre asked, looking directly at the older man. Bennett Enterprises is planning a development here? Robert Bennett assessed Andre with cool eyes. And you are? This is Andre Taylor, Zoe said quickly. A friend. Andre, this is my grandfather, Robert Bennett. Mr. Taylor, Bennett acknowledged with a slight nod. To answer your question, yes. Bennett Enterprises has acquired several properties in this area for redevelopment. It will bring jobs and improvements to an underserved community. And what happens to the people already living here? Andre asked. People who can't afford your improvements? Bennett's expression remained neutral. Progress always involves change. The overall benefits won't help the families pushed out, Andre cut in. My family has lived in this neighborhood for 3 generations. These aren't just properties to us. They're homes. Andre, Zoe said softly, a plea in her voice. Bennett studied Andre more carefully. Taylor, you wouldn't happen to be related to Rose Taylor, would you? The question caught Andre off guard. She's my grandmother. Ah, Bennett said, a small smile forming. Now I understand. You're the family Zoe has taken such an interest in. How is your grandmother recovering? I understand the Bennett Foundation has been quite helpful. The implication was clear, and it hit Andre like a slap. In Bennett's mind, his family had already received their compensation through his grandmother's medical care. Before Andre could respond, Zoe stepped between them. That's enough, grandfather. The Foundation's work has nothing to do with this. Bennett checked his watch. I have a meeting. We'll continue our discussion later, Zoe. Don't be late tomorrow. He nodded briefly to Andre. Mr. Taylor. As Bennett walked to a waiting luxury car, Andre turned to Zoe, anger and betrayal fresh in his eyes. Was this what it was all about? He demanded. Getting close to the locals before your family's company pushed us all out? No, Zoe protested. I didn't even know about the development plans until after we met. That's what I've been fighting with my grandfather about. Andre wanted to believe her, but doubt clouded his thoughts. Your family's foundation pays for my grandmother's care, while your company makes plans to redevelop our neighborhood. That's one hell of a coincidence. It is a coincidence, Zoe insisted. I've been volunteering here for over a year. The development plan only came up recently. Andre, you have to believe me, I'm trying to stop it. Andre looked at her for a long moment. I don't know what to believe anymore. He turned and walked away, his mind reeling with this new revelation. Behind him, he heard Zoe call his name, but he didn't look back. The morning of the Bennett Enterprises board meeting dawned cold and gray. Andre had barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts about Zoe, his grandmother, and the future of the neighborhood he'd called home his entire life. He'd spent half the night researching Bennett Enterprises and their previous development projects. The pattern was clear. They'd buy properties in struggling areas, redevelop them into upscale housing and retail spaces, and watch as property values soared, along with rents that pushed out long-time residents. Andre arrived early for his morning class at the community college, but he couldn't focus on the engineering problems before him. After 30 minutes of staring blankly at his textbook, he gathered his things and left. Almost without conscious decision, he found himself on a bus heading downtown, toward the gleaming Bennett Tower where the company's headquarters occupied the top 15 floors. He didn't have a plan, didn't even know if he could get into the building, but something drove him forward. The lobby was intimidating, all polished marble and glass, with security guards at a desk checking IDs. Andre approached hesitantly, aware of how out of place he looked in his worn jeans and work boots. Can I help you? A guard asked, eyeing him suspiciously. Before Andre could answer, a familiar voice called his name. He turned to see Zoe walking toward him, dressed in a tailored blue suit that made her look older and more serious than he'd ever seen her. What are you doing here? She asked, genuine surprise in her eyes. I don't know, Andre admitted. I needed to see for myself what was happening. Zoe glanced at the security guards, then back to Andre. The board meeting is about to start. I can't talk now. I understand, Andre said, already backing away. This had been a stupid idea. Wait, Zoe said, reaching out to touch his arm. Come up with me. What? "Come to the meeting," she said, her expression intense. "See for yourself what I'm trying to do." Andre hesitated. "They'll let me in?" "I'm Zoe Bennett," she said with a small, ironic smile. "They'll let you in." And so Andre found himself in an elevator rising to the 50th floor, standing beside Zoe in uncomfortable silence. "I'm presenting an alternative development plan today," she finally said as they neared their destination, one that includes affordable housing and community spaces. "My grandfather doesn't know yet." Andre looked at her in surprise. "Will they listen to you?" "I own 15% of the company shares," Zoe replied. "They have to listen. Whether they'll agree is another matter." The boardroom was everything Andre had imagined. A long table of dark wood, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a commanding view of the city. Well-dressed people with expressions of money and power. Robert Bennett sat at the head of the table, his frown deepening when he saw Andre enter behind his granddaughter. "Zoe, this is a closed meeting," he said sharply. "Mr. Taylor is here as my guest, grandfather." Zoe replied calmly. "As a resident of the neighborhood in question, his perspective is valuable." Several board members exchanged glances, but no one contradicted her. Andre took a seat at the back of the room, feeling like he'd stepped into another world. The meeting began with presentations about the company's financial performance and upcoming projects. Andre listened carefully, struck by how these people discussed neighborhoods and communities as assets and investments, with little mention of the actual people who lived there. When it came time to discuss the Riverside project, the development that would include Andre's neighborhood, Robert Bennett nodded to a man with silver-rimmed glasses who began showing slides of blighted areas and underutilized spaces. "As you can see," the presenter said, "the current properties are generating minimal tax revenue and deterring potential economic growth. Our plan would transform the area into a vibrant mixed-use development with luxury apartments, boutique retail and office space." Andre's hands clenched into fists as he recognized images of his own street, labeled as prime for redevelopment. Projected return on investment is 18% over 5 years, the man continued, with complete transformation of the neighborhood profile and demographic. "And what about the current residents?" Zoe's voice cut through the room. "Where do they go?" Her grandfather sighed. "As we've discussed, Zoe, the Bennett Foundation will provide relocation assistance." "Relocation to where?" Zoe pressed. "To neighborhoods with fewer services, away from their jobs, schools, and community connections." "Progress requires change," Robert Bennett said firmly. "The overall benefit to the city." "I'd like to present an alternative approach," Zoe interrupted, standing up. She moved to the front of the room with a confidence that surprised Andre. This was a side of her he'd never seen before. For the next 15 minutes, Zoe presented a detailed plan that would preserve much of the existing neighborhood while still allowing for development. Her proposal included renovating existing structures rather than demolishing them, creating mixed-income housing, providing retail spaces with reduced rent for local business owners, and establishing a community center and park. "The projected return is lower, 12% rather than 18%, she acknowledged. "But the social impact is considerably more positive, and the long-term benefits to both the community and our company's reputation are substantial." Robert Bennett's expression remained stony. "This is a business, not a charity." "It's both," Zoe countered. "The Bennett Foundation exists because this company has always understood that social responsibility and profit can coexist. I'm not asking us to abandon profit just to balance it with purpose." She turned to look directly at Andre. "The people in this neighborhood deserve better than displacement. They deserve investment in their community, not erasure of it." The room fell silent. Andre met Zoe's gaze, seeing in her eyes the person he'd come to know over the past months. The real person behind both the simple volunteer and the wealthy heiress. After a moment, one of the board members, an older woman with short gray hair, spoke up. "I'd like to hear from the young man Zoe brought with her. You live in this neighborhood, correct?" All eyes turned to Andre. He swallowed hard, then stood. "Yes, ma'am. My family has lived there for 3 generations. My grandmother raised me and my siblings there after our parents couldn't. It's not just buildings to us, it's home." "And what do you think of Ms. Bennett's alternative proposal?" the woman asked. Andre took a deep breath. "Honestly, it's the first time I've felt like someone with power actually sees us as people, not problems." The neighborhood needs help, we know that. But we need to be part of the solution, not pushed aside for it. The meeting continued with questions and debate. Some board members seemed intrigued by Zoe's approach, while others sided with her grandfather. No final decision was reached, with Robert Bennett eventually tabling the matter for further study by a committee. As people filed out of the boardroom, Zoe approached Andre. "Thank you for speaking up. Did it make any difference?" he asked. "More than you might think," she said. Several key board members seemed interested in my approach. "It's a start." Robert Bennett interrupted them, his expression stern but not unkind. "An interesting performance today, Zoe." "It wasn't a performance, grandfather," she replied steadily. Bennett turned his attention to Andre. "Young man, I understand you're studying engineering?" The question caught Andre off guard. "Yes, sir. Civil engineering, when I can afford the classes." Bennett nodded thoughtfully. "Your grandmother speaks highly of you." "You've talked to my grandmother?" Andre asked in surprise. "I make it a point to know who the Bennett Foundation is helping," Bennett replied. "She's a remarkable woman. Very proud of you." Before Andre could respond, Bennett continued. "Zoe tells me you have quite a talent for practical problem solving and design. Our company offers scholarships for promising students, particularly those interested in sustainable urban development." Andre glanced at Zoe, who looked as surprised as he felt. "I don't want charity, sir." "It's not charity," Bennett replied firmly. "It's investment. The scholarship recipients participate in our internship program and bring fresh perspectives to our projects. Based on what I saw today, your perspective might be valuable." With that, he handed Andre a business card. "My assistant will send you the application details. The selection process is blind, no names, just qualifications and ideas. If you're as good as Zoe believes, you'll earn it on merit." As Bennett walked away, Zoe turned to Andre with wide eyes. "I didn't put him up to that, I swear." "I believe you," Andre said, surprised to find he truly did. They left the building together, stepping out into weak winter sunshine. "I'm sorry," they both said simultaneously, then laughed, breaking the tension. "You first," Andre offered. Zoe took a deep breath. "I'm sorry I wasn't honest about who I was. I should have trusted you with the truth." Andre nodded. "And I'm sorry I assumed the worst when I found out. I should have given you a chance to explain." They walked in companionable silence for a block before Andre spoke again. "So what happens now? With the development plans?" "The fight isn't over," Zoe admitted. "My grandfather won't give up easily, but neither will I." "Neither will I," Andre echoed. "It's my home too," Zoe smiled. "We make a pretty good team, you know, the engineer and the heiress." "Is that what we are? A team?" Andre asked, their eyes meeting. "I'd like to think so," Zoe said softly. "Friends, at least?" "Friends," Andre agreed. "For now." 3 years later, Andre stood at the podium as valedictorian of his engineering class. The scholarship from Bennett Enterprises had indeed been awarded on merit. He'd later learned that his application had received the highest score from the blind selection committee. In the audience, his grandmother sat proudly beside Keisha and Daryl. Next to them was Zoe, who had become not just his friend but his partner in more ways than one. After graduation, they walked together to the site of the new Riverside community development, a project that bore little resemblance to the original Bennett plans. Under Zoe's growing influence in the company and with Andre's input as part of the design team, the development had evolved into a model of community-centered urban renewal. The old buildings had been renovated rather than demolished. New structures blended with the existing architecture. Most importantly, the original residents remained, benefiting from improved infrastructure and facilities without being priced out of their homes. "Your design for the community center is amazing," Zoe said, looking at the nearly completed building that had once been an abandoned warehouse. "Your professors were right, you have a gift for this. Couldn't have done it without your stubborn insistence on doing things differently," Andre replied, taking her hand. "Your grandfather still thinks we're both idealistic troublemakers." "He's coming around," Zoe laughed. especially since the project is getting national attention as a new model for ethical development. As they walked through the neighborhood, their neighborhood, Andre reflected on the strange journey that had brought them here. From a chance meeting on a rainy night to partners in transforming not just a community, but an entire approach to urban development. "What are you thinking about?" Zoe asked. Noticing his thoughtful expression, Andre smiled. "Just that sometimes. The most unlikely connections turn out to be exactly what we need." "Speaking of connections," Zoe said, "your grandmother invited my grandfather to Sunday dinner next week. Said it was time they stopped arguing through us and sorted things out themselves." Andre laughed. "Now that's a dinner I wouldn't miss." As they continued their walk, greeting neighbors and checking on construction progress, Andre felt a deep sense of rightness. Their story wasn't perfect. There were still challenges ahead, still differences to navigate. But together, they were building something that mattered. Not just buildings, but bridges between worlds that had seemed impossibly far apart.